Thank you, everybody that's joining our webinar today. The shopper has spoken. We have a jam-packed and incredibly informative and lively session prepared for you today. Just a couple of housekeeping things as everybody hops on. The session will be recorded and shared, so everybody that is attending will receive a copy to watch on demand. Feel free to share that with your teams. You'll also get a copy of our latest consumer research study, where all of this is documented in a beautiful report. So let's dive right in. First and foremost, very quick introductions. My name is Maria Babiskina. I'm the Global Head of Marketing here at TruRating. Been working in the marketing space for about 15 years, as well as the CX field, and really have a true passion, for marketing and CX in general. I'll be your host and moderator today. And as we were looking for a guest speaker to join us, Bealls particularly stood out. Besides having over 650 stores, this is a company that's been in business for 100+ years now, which means they've prospered through the Great Depression, 2 world wars, numerous economic booms and busts. And, we thought how inspirational, and who better to join us in a chat through how retailers can prosper through the current cost of living crisis than someone who's really been through it all. So welcome, Francois Vaurie.
Thank you. Well, I was not a part of all those adventures and crises, but I'll try to bring some insights.
Thank you, Francois. And Francois is the head of shopper strategy, loyalty, and credit at Bealls. We were so excited to have him on board for today's session. Thanks so much for joining us. And last but certainly not least, we have Gareth Johns, our behind the scenes chief data officer here at TruRating, and really the brains behind a lot of the data that we'll share with you today alongside our data team. So he'll be providing Q&A support during the session. If you have questions, type them into the chat, and we'll also open up for Q&A after the webinar wraps as well. So let's dive right in. It feels like, we just got through a black swan event like COVID, which was already such a huge challenge for even the most prospering retailers. And now the industry is being hit with yet another new onset of issues. So current state, it's no secret, it's across all the headlines. We've officially hit a 40-year record high for inflation. And I think everybody's really trying to figure out how to install confidence in what is now an incredibly fragile consumer market. So today we'll share thoughts, ideas that are really grounded in data from real consumers. And we're going to focus on 4 key themes, which will give you some practical takeaways, some questions to ponder, and also get some real life use cases from our amazing guest, Bealls. So before we dive into the first takeaway, I just wanted to take a brief moment to share where all of this data comes from. So TruRating ran a study in partnership with our retailers from May through August, right around the peak of inflation, where everything was kind of starting out and, began to grow much more than we actually had anticipated in the beginning. And we asked single questions as part of the checkout process right on the pin pad across different stores globally, thousands of stores. And we were able to map that data to things like repeat visits and ATV to really get an understanding, not just of the answer to the question, but how sentiment really is going to influence shopper behavior. And in just 4 short months with 80% response rates, we got back 175,000 responses from consumers to questions that really addressed when, where, and how consumers shop. And that's exactly what we'll share with you today. All right. So jumping into the first theme, it can be extremely tempting to see the impacts of inflation as all-encompassing, but our data really shows that inflation is not being felt equally by consumers across varying life stages. 81% of our respondents actually said that they had noticed a change in living costs. But if we break that down to a more granular level, it really becomes crystal clear that different economic groups are actually having different reactions to the economic downturns. And when we split the difference across 2 retailers with notably different demographics, the examples that we had, one was an athletic brand serving typically an under 30 market versus a discount brand that served families and seniors. We actually saw a 14-point swing with 89% of older consumers answering yes, compared to 75% of youth. So what that tells you might not be surprising. Younger consumers are not as impacted by things like rise in food costs, energy costs, but it does raise a really important point for retail at large, and that is that the impact of inflation on shopping habits and a consumer's likelihood to shop differently is really going to depend on the target and niche consumer for that retailer. So if you think about Gen Z shoppers, while they may report less of an immediate pinch, if you will, it's really important to remember that, spending power does not necessarily split equally across generational lines either. So your baby boomers will likely have the strongest financial power, which again really reinforces the idea and the importance of viewing your customer base not as a single homogenous group, but rather than looking at inflation in a broad sense. Retailers really need to spend time, seriously considering how inflation is impacting the very specific and niche demographics that you serve. So again, it's clear the data tells us that trying to apply a one-size-fits-all solution is probably not going to yield the best results. So what do you do? A few questions to ask yourself. Does your product range and price point match the needs of your core audience right now in this moment? Are you delivering targeted, granular messaging to your consumers to show them that you're listening and that you understand? And are you measuring and responding to very localized needs in real time? Can't stress enough how important it is, wherever possible, measuring the customer needs and sentiment at the store level to really be able to compare and benchmark your regional and demographic segments. So I want to transition over to Bealls. Francois, talk to us a little bit about your target shopper across your varying brands and how your team is currently measuring satisfaction and loyalty.
Yes, so we have two major brands at Bealls. The first one is the Bealls department stores. We have about 70 stores in Florida. And for this brand, our target group is really women. We have 75% of our shoppers that are women, typically senior profiles. They are above 60 with a high income. The second brand is the Bealls Outlet stores. We have about 600 stores across 24 states. And this is an off-price chain. Same thing, very highly targeted by women. We have 75% of our shoppers that are women, but they are a bit younger, more family profiles with a lower income, obviously, because it's an off-price chain. And we also have Bealls.com and BeallsOutlet.com. And how do we measure customer satisfaction? So on top of all the segmentation that we have, profiles, one of the key indicators are the TruRating questions, actually. We use them in store and online. We measure NPS, which is the Net Promoter Score, and also other values that are really driving our business, such as price, values, shopping experience, product, and service. So also the good thing is that we track these metrics at the store level. And I just said we have more than 650 stores. So that enables us to really see which stores are really performing well in those different metrics and the ones that are below average. So we can address whenever we identify that a store needs maybe to have some more training. We also use reports from customer service. We have phone calls, chat. So we use that, analyze the words and make sure that we address if anything is not on par. And we also use our quantitative KPIs, such like purchase behavior, retention rates, segment migration. So if we see if someone is going up in the segments or going down, this is also how we measure if people are still happy to shop with us and love our stores.
Amazing what you guys are doing across all the different brands. And I love that you have both quantitative and qualitative metrics in place, and you're really tracking the values that are important to your company. I think that really shows that your values, are not just something that you put on a poster in the break room, but something that you're really passionate about running through the DNA of your organization all the way down to the store level. So incredible. So let's transition to the rise in prices and how that is changing shopping habits. So following a similar theme to inflation impacting age groups differently, we also noticed that inflation rates are really not equal in every region. So in TruRating's operating markets, the inflation numbers for July in 2022 versus the prior year were 6% for Australia, 8.5% for the US, and 10.1% for the UK. And we asked consumers in each of these regions specifically about changes in basic habits like driving and food consumption. And what we were trying to get at was, how these factors impact discretionary spend and shopping. So from a retail perspective, the key consideration is really one of location. In markets where consumers are more heavily reliant on private transportation just to simply get to the store, the size of the trade area or the catchment area really becomes far more important. And then retailers who are in the densely populated urban areas will likely have already noticed some of the benefit of that. So, kind of knowing that families and seniors are feeling the cost of living at a higher rate and are also likely to inhabit those urban areas where, less driving is required than your younger affluent customers, you can really begin to draw some conclusions. And in addition to that, you have supply chain disruptions, which vary by region. So, you want to avoid simply taking an 8% price increase everywhere. It may be very well possible that you take a 5% price increase in Atlanta and a 7% increase in California. And really the best plan is just to create a comprehensive strategy that takes into account segmentation data and all of the differences across your niche markets, something that is optimized by region, factors in things like product mix, local prices based on competitive data feeds, and then monitoring that real-time data to make very rapid adjustments. Super important to stay connected to the consumer during this time as you are making pivots and shifts and changes to really understand how those changes, how consumers are actually responding to those changes as you kind of figure out how to navigate these turbulent seas. So, by helping your consumers weather the storm of temporary cost increases, you can really win long-term customer trust. If customers are going the extra mile to visit your store, you really need to ensure that you're delivering on the fundamentals when they get there. So going beyond expectations during times of need will certainly not be forgotten. So by understanding, which product lines have the strongest impact on your customers' perception of brand value, you can actually mitigate potential losses by strategically increasing prices for products that are going to have a less knock-on effect. And our data does show that your most loyal customers are actually going to be the ones that notice any price increases first. So something to keep in mind there. So a few key takeaways: in hard times, all footfall is more valuable than ever. Every person that walks through your door really needs to have a positive and wonderful experiences. Helping your customers now to win long-term trust and loyalty. Customers are paying much closer attention, and they're actually much more sensitive than they were pre-inflationary and pre-COVID era. So again, something to keep in mind. And then these challenge times, they really present an opportunity to exceed expectations and give you a chance to really wow your customers. So Francois, talk to us a little bit about the changes that Bealls has seen specifically due to inflation and what your team is currently doing to address some of those challenges.
Yeah, so actually it's very much in line with what you just said, because we see definitely an increase in average basket, which is driven by more items in each trip, but fewer trips. So I guess people are paying attention to the gas prices and making fewer trips. Also, we conducted an analysis recently about the profiles and the demographics that were shopping in our stores, and we saw that we have a trade down from high incomes in our outlet stores, meaning we now have more high income shoppers visiting these stores, and we do not see this impact in our department stores. And we also conducted that analysis throughout all the states where we are, and we see very big differences. So for instance, the Virginia, West Virginia, Indiana are the states where we see the highest impact of those high income coming to the outlet stores, and the lowest impact is in New Mexico, Kentucky, and Arkansas. So definitely what you just said is resonating, because we see the same trends. So now, how do we address these challenges? So in terms of cost and retail prices, we are evaluating all the areas where inflation is directly impacting us. So production cost, shipping cost, and we try to see how we can always deliver the great products at unbeatable prices. Because you said it, we've been in business for more than 100 years, and this is how we built our success. So now we need to keep delivering those values. That also made us rethink some of the strategies in terms of marketing. And you haven't mentioned, but there's a crisis in the paper industry. Costs are going through the roof. So we are also shifting some of our marketing dollars to more digital. We actually canceled a few direct mail campaigns to save and push on digital. And also what we do is we try to promote online shopping as much as we can. So we are increasing the number of products on our online stores. So if people don't want to drive to the stores, they can still shop and have the same shopping experience online.
Thanks, Francois. It's really inspirational that you guys are taking a holistic look at how inflation is really impacting all areas of the business and making, really targeted adjustments internally so that you can continue to live up to your customers' pricing standards. Wonderful. Well, our next theme, the increasingly thoughtful consumer, while, location, stage of life, and of course, relative income all have an impact on consumer spending patterns. One overarching trend that we've seen across all demographics is a really increasingly thoughtful approach to just consumption overall. So a tightening of the purse string really forces us to be more cautious, but also impacts, our willingness to shop around, to try new retailers, to search out a good deal, to invest more time in finding the best bang for our buck. So, in our current climate, the very concept of value is undergoing somewhat of a reevaluation, if you will. Quality of goods and not just price point is increasingly the key driver for customers who no longer see discretionary purchases as desirable or necessary. So you have verticals like home, electronic, and luxury overall who are really seeing a kickback from the pandemic glut in spending on big ticket items. And this was originally fueled by things like, stimulus checks that were helping people get through the lockdowns. But despite this, an analysis of our retail base actually shows that it's actually deep discount retailers who are now feeling the heat because customers are reining back on those disposable and unnecessary purchases. So customers are more cautious with their spending. They're comparing product prices. They're shopping around more. The US actually came in at a whopping 85% for both the amount that compare prices and shop around. But, the flip side to this is really you have an opportunity to win new shoppers away from the competition through really clever marketing and comms, which we'll speak to a little bit in the next section. But at a high level in a difficult market, what do retailers need to talk about in their marketing and their communication through their employees? The first thing that probably comes to mind to everybody is price, but our data actually says something different. Retailers need to talk much more about product quality, product benefits, unique selling points to really convince customers to visit the stores, to make purchases, and put extra items in their basket. And another example we've seen in this is the rise in the number of customers using a list for grocery shopping. Just another example of a loss on discretionary spend. We all know that, customers who use a list have been shown to spend 15% less on average. And, we can't control whether customers use a list or not, but we can try to control what's on that list. So, through communication, recipe suggestions, smart product placement, in-store recommendations, again, depends on your vertical and your brand, but definitely something to keep in mind. And we actually ran a study on the impact of making recommendations, and we found that being consultative with customers in store and offering additional items based on their particular needs, by doing that, customers will actually spend an average of 35.2% more per transactions. And many of the retailers that we work with are actually using the pin pad to ask customers if they were offered additional items to ensure compliance, because they know how critical of an impact this metric has on their bottom line. So a couple key takeaways: quality service and goods, much more important than simply cheap deals to the thoughtful consumer. Continue to expect discretionary purchases to drop during the coming months. Start thinking about what you can do to make up for that. And definitely, connect with your customers and ask yourself how you can actually help them get what they need. So at a time when consumers are really more conscientious about where they shop, the value of your employees also cannot be overstated. So really think about the role that your staff plays and how that's going to be changing over time. I was actually walking through a local shopping plaza this weekend, and I saw a sign in front of a store that said, now hiring brand representatives. And I thought that was really interesting because historically I've seen, hiring cashiers, sales reps, sales associates, but it was really clear that this particular retail store, and I talked to them about this, that they were using the word brand representative. They were using that language intentionally to convey to those potential hires that they're going to be much more than transaction takers. They're looking for people to represent the store, to be passionate about the brand, and even potentially, in this case, to promote their brand on their social media accounts to reach their demographically similar network. So I thought that example was really interesting and really timely, seeing as we had our webinar today. Transitioning over to Francois, I know, we talked about consumers becoming a lot more thoughtful about where they shop, and this potentially presenting an opportunity to acquire new business. So what are some strategies that Bealls is incorporating to attract new clients and take advantage of that?
Yeah, so we have a few initiatives, especially in the last 2 years. The first one is we are completely changing the assortment and increasing the number of categories in our department stores. The second one is, in the last 12 months, we launched 2 new concept stores to improve the shopping experience. So it's a new layout, brighter stores, new categories. We have self-checkout. So completely revisiting the shopping experience in our Bealls department stores, and they are very successful in their markets, very resonating with the audience. So we're going to open new stores like that. Also, we're, as I said before, pushing for e-commerce. So to do that, for instance, we're using the TruRating custom questions to raise awareness in store. So people on the pin pad are asked if they know if they can shop online with our brand. So they answer yes or no. So we push like this. We're also opening new stores in new markets, new states. So in the last 15 to 18 months, we've opened something around 150 stores. So we are penetrating new markets, and we are raising brand awareness for our stores. I'm mentioning brand as you said before. And also, we saw another market a few months ago, and we launched a new brand, which is called Rugged Earth Outfitters. These are stores that are located in rural areas for men with an outdoor hunting, fishing lifestyle. So trying to juggle with many different initiatives to capture new shoppers. And the beauty of the group is that we have different stores, and you can shop, and like the loyalty program works in different brands, different stores. So you can have different shopping experience, always staying in the same group.
Wonderful. Yeah, the expansion that Bealls has undergone in the last 2 years, despite all of the economic challenges that have happened, is just incredible. And, I certainly can't stress the importance of an omni-channel strategy enough. So I love that you guys are using the in-store experience as a catalyst and as a way to drive online awareness for, your online store. And that in-store experience is really what's setting customer expectations and really setting the tone for everything that's to come after that. So love that you guys are, making sure that experience is a wonderful one, because it's really critical to nailing everything that comes after the fact. Wonderful. And last but not least, certainly not least, is, let's talk about values and why they still matter. So, further evidence here that a race to the bottom on, a pricing strategy is really out of step with the modern consumer mindset. Our data actually reveals that, not only are consumers more thoughtful about how they spend their money, but more so than ever, they really want to buy from retailers that share their values too. So we actually found that 77% of consumers are more loyal to retailers that share their values, and a far higher proportion compared to those who claim they were loyal to retailers who offered just a loyalty program alone. So, to kind of sum that up, loyalty in the modern age is really driven by a very complex set of drivers. You have economic, you have aesthetic, you have moral, and you really have to deliver on what's important to your shopper and really deliver, in some ways on all of those. And you might think that ethical concerns of shoppers would be less important during times of economic hardship. But again, our data actually says that this is not the case. So even though customers are more willing to shop around for a deal and, think twice before buying name brands, it does not mean that they're willing to sacrifice a commitment to buy ethically whenever possible. So, an example of this is 75% of US consumers are still looking to buy organic or from ecologically friendly suppliers whenever possible, even in times of inflation. So, if you're a retailer that's considering whether an investment in your own green initiatives is important during this climate, the answer is a very confident and emphatic yes. So, what does this look like? This might be reflected in product range or where you source your goods from, but it can also be an investment in operational activities that ultimately help decrease your green footprint and increase efficiencies within your company. So if you're savvy enough to be investing in these types of activities, as a marketer, I will say, make sure that you communicate this to your customer base and not just in an email blast. Really consider communicating your values out through your packaging, your website, your store displays, product tags, through your employees and employee training. Really build it into the ethos of your organization. And, one of our retailers was actually curious about whether their consumers were aware about their green initiatives. So they asked directly on the pin pad, figured out which locations had less awareness, and then incorporated key initiatives to drive awareness in those specific stores. So Francois, let's end with the long game and talk about, how does Bealls win long-term loyalty with customers?
So I would say that, especially in my role, like everybody else, we are enhancing our insights to better understand who the shoppers are in terms of demographics, purchase behavior, and we are building capabilities to leverage these insights and be even more personalized and targeted in our marketing campaigns, whether it's in store or online. But as I said before, Bealls has built its success for over 100 years on very strong values like service, product choice, low prices. And this is why when we look at the TruRating scores, every day we look at those dashboards and our shoppers love us. The NPS are through the roof. We are really rated really high in those metrics. And I think we really need to stay true to these core values. And if you go to the stores or if you call customer service, you will very easily find that we actually deeply care for our shopper. You talked about values. I think we share the same values than people are looking for. And that transpires in everything that we do at corporate level, store level. And I think our shoppers really realize and appreciate that. And I can give you a quick personal anecdote. Every now and then, the people from corporate, we have a chance to work in store. And last year I was onboarded, so I went to a store to work on the floor. And the first thing that the store manager told me was, whatever you do, if someone needs help, you just drop everything and you assist that person. And I think that is being just a quick story that really explains when you go to these stores, you feel welcome, you feel valuable, you feel really special. And that's why we see people coming back very often. So I think if we keep delivering the same value, and for me, value is prices, quality, product choice, service. So if we keep delivering those values, people will still love us and come back to us.
Wonderful. That's amazing. Love that you guys have such a commitment to excellence. And I actually want to dive into a study that we did with your team not too long ago that really pinpointed, what it means to deliver that excellent experience in order to win loyalty. So by anonymously linking customer feedback with the transaction itself, we were able to compare how the likelihood to return to the store increases as customer perception of their experience improves. And what we found was that a likelihood to return really didn't improve until customers had an excellent experience and gave the very highest possible scores. So in other words, just a slightly better experience simply wasn't enough. We were able to work out the revenue impact of the missed visits. We actually were able to identify a $164 million opportunity just by moving average experiences to excellent ones. And then from that, we were also able to derive, the very 3 key factors that would help in those areas and lead to repeat business. So, these things vary by brand, but for Bealls, things like having staff available to help, engaging customers as soon as they enter the store and at checkout, and driving driving uptake of the loyalty program for new customers were the three big drivers of really pushing those repeat visits and delivering those excellent experiences. So very unique and wonderful case study that I know is being kind of applied in order to achieve the wonderful scores that you guys are getting today. So I promised that this webinar would not be a sales pitch, be jam-packed with insights. I sincerely hope that we delivered on that. I do have to end with a shameless plug. I think our head of sales would probably kill me if I didn't. So, I thought what better way to wrap and open up for questions than just a window into some heartfelt words from our very own customers. So with that being said, we will wrap and open it up for questions for myself, Francois, or Gareth on our data team. Okay, Francois, we have one question for you. So congratulations first on the recent growth at Bealls. Amazing, especially considering all of the conditions. So as such an established brand, what kind of challenges do you see when opening new stores in new geographic areas where maybe awareness of the brand isn't so great yet? And then any strategies that you don't mind talking about how to grow customer loyalty in these new areas?
So yeah, the first thing that we try to do is really raise brand awareness. In some states, we see that it's we still to work on that. There's also something. So in some states, we have our Bealls Outlet stores are named Burkes Outlet stores, and recently we acquired the name Bealls Outlet in those stores because before it was owned by another company. And so we are transitioning the name Bealls Outlet everywhere to increase the brand awareness. And we do many different media mix strategies: direct mail, emails, shared mail, radio. So we try really to do everything that we can to raise the brand awareness. On the second question was around loyalty in those markets, correct? So it's, yeah, so to make sure that the execution in store is on par with our values, we need to hire the right people. And we have onboarding sessions, training to make sure that when shoppers shop in our stores, we always offer them to join the loyalty program. They can open a credit card. And as soon as we grab those information, then we can segment this person, better understand how they shop, who they are, and then we can do some marketing campaigns. So that's the key thing is our loyalty program. Actually, it was redesigned a year ago. We had a couple of marketing programs for each brand, and we merged everything into one platform. So now that enables us to offer those benefits across all the different brands.
Yeah, interesting. And a very unique way to kind of use the loyalty program information is to really be able to better understand your most loyal shoppers and segment them and do very unique and targeted marketing toward those niche segments, which really speaks to a lot of what we covered in the webinar today. Wonderful. Any other questions? Give everyone just a minute or two in case anybody's typing. And while we're waiting, just want to remind everybody that may have joined us a little bit later after we started, everyone will get a copy of the recording. Feel free to share it out. And everyone that attended today will also get a copy of the Consumer Insights study that we recently published, which really highlights all of the key points that were covered here today. Wonderful. And it looks like we have one last question. So Francois, you mentioned new concept stores for Bealls. What, if any, are the major differences that you see in customer response to the new concept stores? Are you able to really kind of measure and understand the differences between the new concept stores and the existing stores that you have today?
So when I mentioned that they are doing really well, so it's actually stores like Bealls department stores that were converted into concept stores. So we had a core group of shoppers that were already loyal. But what we see is that people are actually spending more. As I mentioned during this webinar, we are increasing the number of categories, number of product and references. So they actually put more products in their baskets in these stores. So that's what we see. We see that the work, and it's not just marketing, it's like selection of products, working with the buyers and the merchants. And so all of those efforts put together enable us to deliver and offer the right product choice to this consumer. If you only buy shoes and clothes in our stores, then you may not be able to come, often. But when you add decorations and candles and greeting cards and beauty stuff and jewelry, then you have much more opportunities to visit our stores. So that's the work that has been done. I didn't go into a lot of details, but we analyzed the data. It's very granular. Like when I talked about segments and profiles, we can also segment by the TruRating questions. So we know who the profiles that are actually not satisfied with our services, and we can target these groups to adjust. So there's a lot of under the water when you have that picture with the iceberg. There's a lot of work of insights and segmentation to understand what we do. And we also leverage the TruRating questions in these stores to understand if we're still on par with what we were delivering before. So all of that put together enabled us to see that we're doing a good job with these concept stores, and we plan to open new ones.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Francois, and thank you, everyone. I don't think we have any additional questions, so thank you to all of our attendees, and we'll be reaching out with the recording. And again, Francois, thank you so much for your time, and everybody's the entire team at Bealls. We really appreciate the partnership and you taking a moment to share your insights with everybody.
Thank you for the invitation.